Hi guys, in today's video tutorial I'm going to talk you through a 3-step routine to help to release off tightness in your IT band or iliotibial band that runs down the outside of the thigh. Now the other day we had a question from a subscriber that asked us what sort of methods we can use to try and reduce discomfort around this area. You've got to remember that the IT band is like a really sort of tough connective fibrous tissue, so it's not actually a muscle itself. And 9 times out of 10, a lot of the discomfort that you get from the IT band tightness that will sort of aggravate the knee because of the way that the IT band attaches just below the knee joint can actually come from tightness through the hips in the first place. So in this video tutorial, I'm going to talk you through how to use a foam roller to start to release off one of your hip flexor muscles that we call the TFL. We're then going to take you through a stretch and then some hip mobility as well to try and take some tension out of the hips and get the IT band moving a little bit more freely as well. So step number 1 on the foam roller is to get into a muscle that we call your TFL or your tensor fasciae latae. So if you think about this sort of pocket area around the side of the hips, that's where we need to start first of all. So we've got the pelvis here, we've got the hip bone just below it. We're going to go right in the middle of those two down onto the roller. So if you take yourself down onto the side, place that roller in between the hip and the pelvis. Use your forearm for a little bit of support. Take one leg on top of the other. That's going to add a little bit more pressure down into the roller. And we're just going to start in this area first of all, just rolling up and down, seeing if we can find any sort of tightness, any tension. If you find any of those areas that are particularly tight, I want you to just hold the pressure on that area. Try and relax into it. Take some nice deep breaths and just wait for the tension to release off before we then start to work on rotating over onto the top of the thigh and working into the top of the thigh at the same time as well. So these are the first 2 areas. So sideways on to start off with, a little bit of an assessment, up on the roller, figure out where the tightness is, then you can start to rotate over onto the top of the roller. And again, if you find any areas that are particularly tight or tender, it's going to take a bit of time just to relax into it, let your body relax by using breathing to let the muscles relax at the same time. And then from here, what we're going to do, take the roller just below the hip. We're going to take it into the IT band now. Use it more like a rolling pin. So instead of stopping on the tight spots and trying to release it, this time what I want you to do is work on trying to roll from just down below the hip towards the knee. So I'm using my opposite foot on the floor for a bit of support. And I'm taking that roller all the way down towards the knee, rolling the whole length of that IT band and just trying to free up that area a little bit. Probably do this maybe sort of 10 to 15 repeats. And obviously it is important that you focus on both sides as well, because even though the tightness will be on one side of the hips, it's important to try and keep that sort of level basis around the pelvis to make sure you don't cause an issue on the opposite side. So foam roll the hips first of all, down the IT bands on both sides. The second part of this routine is to try and open up the hips via a stretch. It's going to look at that TFL area again. Okay, so we're going to use this box on the floor. Obviously, if you don't have a box, you could use your sofa, or if you've got a relatively low chair, take a cushion onto the floor just to protect your knee. And then from here, take your knee onto the cushion, take your back foot up onto the top of the bench or the box, whatever you've got available, front foot forwards. Make sure you bring yourself up into a nice tall kneeling position, so you don't want to be leaning too far forwards. We want to create a stretch through the top of the thigh, through the hips. Hold that position, think about trying to tuck the hips under to create that stretch, and then left arm up in the air, reach open with a little bit of a rotation. Just try and really open up through the hips. We're going to give it a good sort of 30 to 45 seconds holding this position. Again, just use your breathing just to start to relax into the stretch. And again, you do both sides of this release as well. And then the final part of today's tutorial is trying to get the hip joint moving a bit more freely. Okay, so you just need a little bit of space on the floor for this next one. We're going to look at trying to get the hip moving through what we call internal and external rotation. So you're going to start sat on the floor, hands behind you for a bit of support, feet probably just outside shoulder width apart, and then we're going to bring you down into what we call a 90-90 hip mobility drill. Okay, so we've got 90 degrees here, 90 degrees here. Lean forward slightly if you want to create a stretch. Draw back up, take it over the other side. And again, start to lean forwards, back up to the top, using your hands for support as you go across from side to side. But trying to encourage the movement now, so trying to get that sort of free-flowing rotation through the hips. As we go from side to side, probably about maybe 10 repetitions each way. Starting to feel a little bit of stretch through the glutes as we go across. And now what that's going to do is just get that hip joint moving a bit more freely now that you've rolled it and stretched it, and hopefully take some tension away from the IT band and help to prevent any sort of issues around the knee at the same time.